let's jump into fulfillment. We're going to break this down into work fulfillment, life fulfillment, and I call it mental/relationship fulfillment. I think three kind of different categories of fulfillment. But these are things that I think you should learn in school. You should have in your skill set to have a wonderful life, to have a fulfilling life, both in your success in your business ventures or all that sort of stuff, but also in your relationships and your communication and all that sort of stuff. And where we're going to start with is the hot topic of finding a career, a vocation, a calling, all these things. There's so many, surprisingly, I just TED Talked that a couple months ago, and there's like millions of views for several videos that are trash, in my opinion. There's a couple good ones, but it's like, there's not a lot of great information out there, and I'm not going to give you all the answers. I think there's a lot of experimentation and you got to do on your own. But first thing I want to do is all of you, I want you to define fulfillment. So I'm going to have lots of activities today. I'm going to have it as interactive as possible to maximize your learning and retention. Okay, next thing that I want you to define, or for you, actually, I want you to make two columns, okay, in your notes. On one column, I want you to title the column, What the World Needs, okay? In the other column, I want you to put, What I'm Passionate About, okay? And I'm gonna put you on the clock. We're gonna actually do a timer, and we're just gonna do a speed brainstorm. You're only gonna get 40 seconds for each. And you're gonna get 40 seconds to fill out each column, okay? 40 seconds for what the world needs. So what does the world need? The world needs doctors and teachers and lawyers, blah, blah, blah. Make a list. Ready, 40 seconds, and go. As many as you can in 40 seconds. Go, go, go. 36 seconds remaining. What does the world need? List as many things as you think the world needs. It doesn't have to be just careers. The world needs joy. The world needs this. The world needs fun. The world needs healthcare professionals. The world needs happiness. The world needs fulfillment. The world needs laughter. Man, I'm giving you so many. 20 seconds remaining. Stop. Now go to what you're passionate about. List as many things as you're passionate about. 40 seconds. Go. Many things as you're passionate about as possible. Everything and anything. What are you passionate about? Animal facts. Frogs. Ten seconds remaining. All right, and stop. So I'm going to share my screen again here. I think when we talk about fulfillment, one really big piece of that is work fulfillment and finding a vocation. Okay. So I don't think of it as careers. I think of them as callings or vocations. All right. So a vocation to me is a combination of two things, right? A vocation is where your passion meets what the world needs. Okay. And you can have multiple callings. I don't think there's one. And I had you do that quick brainstorm, but I would encourage you maybe take 5 minutes on each side and list out as many things as you're passionate about, and then really saying, hey, are any of those things a need that the world has? And in America, we really confuse wants and needs. So you can even extend it to what the world wants, right? Beyond just what the world needs. Now, let's talk a little bit. You can title it in your notes, vocation. I want to talk a few slides and just talk a little bit about vocations. Okay. First thing I'll say about vocations is it's not going to be found. This is one thing I really disagree with how we kind of teach finding a career. It's like, oh, you have this one. It's almost like how we teach love. There's not a one, right? That's my opinion about love. There's a lot of people that you could spend your life with and make into an amazing, partnership. The same is true with careers. I don't think there's one career destined for you out there. You need to forge it. Okay, it's not going to be found. You are going to forge it. So you need to start putting in the work to be excellent at something. That is forging your vocation. Once you find, hey, this is what I'm passionate about and this is what the world needs. Okay, those two things unite. That could be a potential calling or vocation for me. So, awesome. Forge your way into that vocation. All right. And all of you are familiar with, improving yourself and growth mindset. And, obviously you have to start putting in the work. Now, what does that require? That requires discipline. And one of my mentors in kind of vocations shared this with me, and I've always held on to it, right? You can pay one of two prices. You can pay the price of discipline or the price of regret. Okay, and I've really kept that as one of my mantras and how I've created things in life and done projects and what I've considered. I don't consider anything work or play, just how I've built my life, right? I can have the price of discipline or I can have the price of regret. Now, one of these weighs ounces, one of them weighs tons. And one thing that I would also put in my notes that's not going to be on the slide is one is temporary and one can last forever. One is temporary and one can last forever. One is temporary and one can last forever. So I want to have a real moment with you guys. I don't believe in the whole grind it out till you die achievement oriented path. I don't think that's the best quality of life. I do think there are periods where you have to push very hard. There are seasons, whether that be a season within a year, season of your life, for sure. And I've pushed through those seasons. What I will say is, even beyond those pushes, there are many moments that it's not going to be one big discipline. What I found, and once again, this is not the truth. Everything I share is not the one path up the mountain. There's so many paths up the mountain. Find multiple mentors, find people that have opposing opinions to me, and you find your own path up the mountain. In my experiences, that discipline is like tiny little things. Like I see, we live in community and these people live next door and our friends and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times, last night, everyone's hanging out on the deck. I needed to edit two of the slides. And that took 8 minutes. And that, I wanted to be out there, right? But that was just a little discipline, that 8 minutes of I'm forging something of serving other people, right? And doing something I'm so passionate about teaching slices. So it might be big, hard bursts, right? And some of you on this call, you're in burst or you have been through burst recently. But sometimes it's just little daily disciplines of hey, you're going to have to sacrifice the temporary convenience in order to forge something that's special. Okay. All right. So let's talk about, what if you don't know what to do, or what if you do know that you're passionate about something, where should you go? And this diagram will be in your packet, so you don't have to write it all down. So to me, it's kind of like this tree diagram for me. Going over to the left. Do you know what you want to do? Yes. Okay. Does it make money? Yes. Awesome. Go do it. Right. Several of you are basketball coaches, right? That's your profession. Or teachers, right? Do you know, is that what you want to do? Yes. Does it make money? Yes. Awesome. Go do it. Okay. Let's say, Nadir, I'm just randomly making up. Nadir is really passionate about some sort of helping the homeless, right? In some way, right? Well, does that project make money? Potentially not, right? So then if whatever you're passionate about doesn't make money, I really have two thoughts. And here, my first thought would be figure out a different way to make money. And then you can live out your passion, right? Figure out the financial piece separately and then live out your passion, right? It's going to lead to more fulfillment. And that might be a means to an end. Or get really creative to find a way to make money in the thing that you're passionate about, okay? Now, if you don't know what you want to do in life, so you see on that tree diagram the no, then figure out what you want to do first, okay? And then go up to the top. Does it make money? Yes, no, and go forward. Okay, how do you do that if you don't know what you want to do? My first piece of advice would be experiment. Okay. So before I go any further and jump into how you should experiment, what you should do, I do want to give you this resource. So one of my close friends who I've had a lot of discussions, he also teaches an MBA program and he's a great teacher. He recommends a resource called Conscious Leadership. Okay, it's a book, and then you want to pay to go to the conference or whatever. And he says, hey, honestly, I've taught all this vocation stuff for so long. This is one of the places I would just direct people now, right? So I haven't gone through it. I can't speak for it personally, the resource, but I think it's worth picking up the book and seeing for yourself. Something I'll do this fall as well. Okay, so my route, which is going to be slightly different than, accessing conscious leadership and accessing outside source. I think you need to experiment, right? So, and actually, you know what? Let me go back one thing, just one other thing to add to your notes here. It doesn't have to be all the hours of your day. It doesn't have to be all the hours of your day, but it will look different than most other people, because most people are not building a fulfilling life. Okay, so I think that's an important kind of balance to strike. It doesn't have to be all the hours of your day, but it will look different than other people. And that can be lonely at times. Okay, that can be really lonely. So I want you to be aware of that loneliness to come. And one of the things that really excites me is there's so many amazing humans on this call. Don't let this be the only time you connect with someone you don't know on this call, because that loneliness doesn't feel so lonely when you're connecting with other people intentionally trying to build a fulfilling life. So let's jump into a little experimentation. Okay. Here are some questions. They will not be in your packet, so I'll give you a little chance to write them down. These are questions I would ask myself as I'm starting to experiment. And I still experiment. I have been experimenting for 15 years. I'm still experimenting. These are questions I still ask myself. What skills do you want to be using? Or what skills are you good at? Okay. I'm asking myself those questions all the time. I'm at a new kind of evolution of like, I won't teach basketball forever. What's next? I like teaching, but how does it look? What is it going to look like? What do you want to get out of work? Is the second, really third question I ask when I'm considering experimenting. And what do you want in a working environment? Okay, so these 4 questions, I want you to take 5 minutes and put it on the clock. And I want you to answer those questions in as much detail as you can on your own. Okay, ready? And go. So you spent 5 minutes on those questions. I would encourage you to revisit those questions often. Put a little note to yourself on the side right now, put a little star. Revisit these questions frequently. Revisit these questions frequently. It's not something you do once and then you never do again. It's something I'm constantly answering all the time, as it will always evolve and change. Now, I want you to tell me 2 to 3 adjectives in the chat box. Don't press send, but what did you feel as you were doing that exercise? Not what did you write down, just what did you feel as you were doing that exercise? I think that's an important thing to self-reflect on as well. And then once you put your 2 or 3 adjectives, I want you to circle those 2 or 3 adjectives and draw an arrow from them. Okay? So draw an arrow from them. I want you to put this reminder in your notes. This is a beautiful part of the human experience. This is a beautiful part of the human experience. This is a beautiful part of the human experience. So many people view certainty as good and uncertainty as bad. Many of you expressed, lack of clarity, certainty, uncertainty, right? And in American culture, we view one of these is good and one of these is bad. No, they are all a beautiful part of the human experience. And while some people might think of like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go next in my career, I think of it as like, what? You have unlimited options? I'm already midway through a career. I have to do this, right? I have to see it out. I don't want to just jump off the bridge. When you don't know what to do, the flip side of that coin is unlimited possibility. You can go in any direction, right? So remember, there's no good or bad. It's all part of the human experience. Okay. So let's dive a little bit deeper into experimenting and continue on our path. So I think your experimentation, right? And deciding, hey, what I want to try out, what I want to do in finding a vocation, I think you should approach it a lot like dating. And let me explain what I mean by that. So very rarely do people marry the first person that they date. Rightfully so. You want to just see like, hey, and maybe, you know, your first choice is not always your best choice, and you grow and you learn and whatever, or you learn something from every relationship. I don't believe, and the cool thing is our society's moving that way anyway. I don't believe, like our parents, you're going to have one career your whole life. So I think you should try out multiple careers, right? Like dating. I also think, and remember, there's not one way up the mountain. I'm just giving you a different potential path. I don't think you should view it as being a high achiever. I think you should try to be a wide achiever. So rather than being a high achiever, right, and going up the corporate ladder or going up the ladder, you know, in which some of you are in careers right now, right, where that's kind of the path, right? And that's okay. I'm not opposed to that. I'm just offering a different approach, right? Being a wide achiever and having a portfolio of careers. So under wide achiever and portfolio career, I would potentially add this note next to that. Create a skill set that can be applied across multiple careers or fields. Create skill sets that can be applied across multiple careers or fields. And then put a little note next to that and put this reminder. It makes pivoting so much easier. Create a skill set that you can apply across a wide range of careers or fields. It makes pivoting so much easier, right? And so where a lot of people get into a really tough and unfulfilling spot is they're trying to go vertically in this one career, and there's all sorts of barriers and roadblocks, politics and this and that and whatever, right? And or just unluckiness or timing or whatever. And so they're so fearful because this is their only vertical path. Give me some examples of skill sets that could be applied widely.
One that I think is leadership. I think it can be applied all across the board. When you're a better leader, you'll be
Beautiful.
I think your relationships will be better. All that.
Everything. Leadership. Yep. Connor, what else?
Public speaking.
Speaking. Matt, what else?
Active listening.
Listening. What else, Claire?
Research.
Researching. Ryan, what else?
Organization.
Organization. Danielle, what else?
Relationship building.
Relationship building. Lily, what else? One of you haven't said the most important one, in my opinion.
Tech skills.
Tech skills. Beautiful, to be applied across a ton of wide range. Ryan.
I think empathy.
Empathy. Beautiful. Put a big star. Communication. Communication is one of the most important skill sets to be applied into every field. Okay. Leadership is probably in there too. All those are great, right? And I agree with all those, and I've tried to develop all those skills. For me, teaching, I teach at PGC. I teach at Slices. I teach at Zebra Crossing. I teach at Cometry. Okay. That's a skill set that I've applied across a wide range. And as I've gotten less passionate about certain things, I've pivoted horizontally rather than only going up or down. Okay. So just a different approach for you to be exposed to. Now, with that, I want you to make a list right now. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'll share my list after with you. And I want you to make a list. If you could, anything is possible, you could dream and you can do anything you want to do. I want you to make a list of at least 10 of careers or vocations you'd like to have in your life. For instance, at some point I would be a massage therapist. At some point I'd like to be a travel blogger, whatever about. Dream your hearts out. Anything's possible, and you can pivot every few years. You got a 70-year life. What are the careers you want to do? Make your list. Ready, go. Tyra Blizzard, going into a professional basketball career. We would all assume, oh, basketball is what she wants to do. Give me 5 that would surprise me from your list.
Okay. Public speaker, life coach, author, MBA, WMBA, movement pattern specialists, women's empowerment network, brand, podcast, something, business.
Yes, yes. Let's elevate our women. That is the biggest untapped resource on the planet. Goodness gracious. Okay, so here's the thing. This list, put a little reminder yourself. This list should evolve constantly. This list should evolve constantly. Okay, and it's a list that I dream and revisit all the time. Now, last few things about experimentation. I hear this question, and go ahead and just raise your fist if you've heard this question before. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Let me just stop sharing my screen. Fist up if you heard that. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Oh, if anything's possible. Dream big, blah, blah. Okay, cool, whatever. I get it, and I should make fun. It is a good question to think about. I took that question, and to me, when I was 23, I went a level deeper, which we're going to talk about going deeper and whys and all this stuff later today. And I asked myself, what is worth doing even if I failed? Okay. What would I create? And if I know I didn't even succeed, is it still worth doing? My answer for commentary was yes. My answer for zebra crossing was yes. My answer for slices is yes. All right. I literally thought, hey, what if, and I'm not trying to make money with slices legitimately. I want Elizabeth and Kendrick's time to be custom for and whatever for their research. But generally, I just want to teach people. And I thought, well, what if only one person shows up? And then I was like, well, that would be worth it, right? Or if no one shows up, would it still be worth me creating all the curriculum and doing all the compiling? Yes, right? It's because I'm so passionate about it. So I think that question is really important for you to keep in your toolbox. All right. Now, back to the discipline, right? So we're figuring out, we're experimenting, we're finding things we like. We have our list, right? And we're going to try. And one cool thing, there's this woman who, she had a Canadian, I believe. She had a awesome, high-paying job. She made her list. I think it's a cool YouTube talk, or maybe a TED talk, or I don't know, I've seen it a while ago. But she made her list, and basically what she did, she reached out to all those things. One of them was like farming, one was like clothes design, all these crazy things. And she just went intern for 2 months at each career. She took 2 years, right? And she did it 12 different things. And then she like found out what she really was most passionate about. There was like 9 on the list that she thought she liked that she really didn't like, right? So once you start experimenting, you have to put in the time to start to learn and develop your craft, right? And you need to become the best at your craft. Once you find that thing, I think you have to become the best or one of the best at your craft. And the cool thing, like this is actually proven, of the top 5% of almost every job makes 6 figures, right? So the money piece figures out itself when you really become best at your craft. When I think about people who I've had access to, I want to give you a couple examples of becoming best at your craft. So a friend of mine, Keith D'Amelio, Keith was the youngest strength coach in NBA history with the Celtics, and then he worked with Raptors, and then he was Stanford strength coach, and now he's the head of performance at Nike. He's respected as one of the best minds in sports strength and conditioning and movement, okay? When he was at Stanford, I went to spend a couple weeks with him. And so we would drive early morning practices or weight lifts, whatever, every morning. And every morning, I was like, I don't want you to interrupt your routine. I just want to observe your routine. And every morning, it was about a 40-minute drive to Stanford's campus. He listened to research and things in his field. He's already one of the best in the field. And every day, I was like, so how often he was like, I devote at least an hour every day to learning in my field, right? And this is one of the best, already in one of the best positions, in the field, okay? Another one of my good friends who's a multi-millionaire on his way to becoming a billionaire. He stopped. He never just sits in the car and listens to music. Okay. Every time he's in the car, it's an audiobook, and it's a way for him to maximize his learning. Now, I'll be honest, there's some days when I just need some music. So I probably do that about 60, 70% of the time. But that's examples of people becoming best at their craft. They're always trying to learn, always pushing the envelope. Okay. So one more thing about discipline, or actually 2 more thoughts. Number 1, when the why gets bigger, the how gets easier. Okay. When the why gets bigger, the how gets easier. And so there's another exercise that I have implemented and encourage other people to do, and that's the list of 50 whys. So all of you look at your list of careers. Okay. So that's a project, a career, a goal, whatever. I want you to look at it. When the why gets bigger, the how gets easier. And I'm explaining when we finish this exercise, why this exercise is so important. Right now, circle one of those careers. Just circle any one of them. That's not your current career. Just randomly choose one. Okay, I'm going to put you on the clock for 2 minutes. I would do this exercise for much longer in real life, but I'm just going to give you a little excerpt at it. And I want you to write a list of 50 reasons why you want to do that career. 50 reasons. 2 minutes. I'll give you 3. 3 minutes. Ready and go. Why did I ask you to make a list of 50? And I'm going to do short time frames because you're when you're pushed with time limit, there's something about urgency that sparks creativity. Okay. I would spend longer on this, and I would actually go until I could get to 50, even if some of them are the most minuscule things. Why would you do that? When things get tough, when you hit adversity, these whys is what is going to drive you. These whys is what I would look at. I have a list of whys that often on the days when I feel discouraged, I feel defeated, I look back at my whys. Okay. And so if it's perfectly 50 or 40, 4, does that matter? Probably not. Right. But when the why gets deeper and you get deeper why, I want to help people. Well, why do you want to help people? Going deeper into that, right? The how gets easier. I think it's important to add some balance here and remember it's not what you get in life, it's who you become in the process. And the cool thing about that list of lifetime careers and becoming great at your craft and all these different things is who you're going to become in the process. I never would have imagined the value of who I've become in raising food, right? So here's the thing, and maybe you steal this practice. This is something that I've developed when I was 23. Every year, and it helped me become, I initially started to do it because I want to be a better teacher. Every year I become a novice at something. Okay. And for that year, I don't have to do it every day, but that year I'm just messing around. I'm not even trying to become an expert at it. I am just experimenting and I'm living in the novice world. Why? It reminds me as a teacher of how to teach novices and how frustrating novice, the first stages of momentum can be. Right. So then, I'm an expert in basketball and it's easy for me to do something, but what about a person who's never done that move before? But then sometimes, like last year, growing my own food was my novice. And sometimes it becomes a passion. And then sometimes you work to become an expert at it. And I cannot tell you guys how rewarding it's been I haven't bought greens from the grocery store since October, right? And how rewarding it is to see so much life in the backyard and grow things, right? That's not going to be your journey. But who you become in the process is really what we're after. Okay, it's not about what you get because money can be taken away. Okay, you can lose everything. And you shouldn't be fearful of that because they can't take your skills and hopefully not, besides disease, they can't take your mind. They can't take away who you become in that process. And that's really cool. And one of the biggest things that I think you're battling subconsciously because you're getting all these messages throughout your life that you're not even realizing about, hey, money equals success. All right. And money is overrated. Now, financial freedom is underrated. And what's crazy is that our movies and our TV shows, they don't highlight financial freedom, right? They just highlight money. Okay. So here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to define in your own words, financial freedom. Go ahead. Write that down. What does that mean to you? Financial freedom. How would you define it? Okay, so really cool definitions. Interesting how debt works their way into some and others not. Opportunities in some, others not. So to me, I define financial freedom by time. Okay, it's measured in the time. How many months or years you can live without having to work. That's financial freedom. Right? And you still could be doing the things you love, right? And or work, quote unquote, working, but financial freedom is measured in time. So I want to just kind of throw this idea and concept at you because many of you, Ryan and a couple others, you're in your early 40s, but many of you are in your teens or 20s or 30s. And Ryan, even at 42, and anyone else potentially older than Ryan, like, I don't think it's ever too late to consider this philosophy, because I think it can be done within a decade or two. Okay. So I think you have to consider, are you going to pay now or are you going to pay later? And this is the concept that I hope, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I hope not only impacts you, but I hope you bring it to your community, because this is so countercultural to how Americans live, or Canadians as well. Okay. How Westerners live. So you pay now or pay later, in my opinion, when it comes to your path to financial freedom. What most people do is they party and have a good time in their 20s and 30s and just, make sure they're paying the bills, or sometimes live even beyond their means. They spend as much or more than they make. They become trapped into working. And Kendrick, can you put a reminder up so people don't have to write down each of these? We'll throw this screen in the packet. They become trapped into working, and as they're, they get a bigger family, or they get more expenses, they increase their lifestyle. They have to then make, 75,000 or 60,000 or whatever to just keep up with their expenses. I think a different route, right? I think you use your 20s and 30s for their strengths. What do you have in your 20s and 30s that you don't have as much of for the rest of your life? What do you have in your 20s and your 30s that you don't have as much of for the rest of your life? What do you think? Unmute yourself, take a guess.
Flexibility.
Right. Flexibility? I would add that to the list, right? Now, what do you think, Brittany?
Health.
Health? I would argue you can have that at any point, right? That you might have a little more health, but Brittany's really warm to what I'm actually going to point out.
Energy?
Correct. That is a cellular thing. I'm all about longevity and health but our cells is just, part of having youth is more energy. Okay. It comes along with how our cells break down and just time. You have more energy in your 20s and 30s than you will have in your 40s and 50s, even if you're healthy. Okay. So use it. That doesn't mean grind to your death, but use that energy and flexibility potentially. Ryan, I wouldn't say flexibility to me is like, I always am going to have flexibility, even if I have a family, even if I have kids, even like flexibility to me is true, but it's also a mindset. So a different route, use your 20s and 30s for your energy and live off as little as you can. That's very different, very hard when all your friends are going to be going out, or all your friends are starting to buy new cars, or starting, to get their first house, and, all these cultural pressures. Okay. You invest the excess, and then you reach financial freedom as fast as you can and work by choice. That route can lead to a ton of fulfillment. We're not going to dive solely into wealth, but I just want to point out this one little thing, because people think, they don't even really think about what financial freedom is. They don't really think about, and we're never taught this stuff. So they don't think it's possible. They think, oh, that's some brilliant, rich investor. I could never do that. And the thing that I love showing people is it's not, the light at the end of the tunnel is not that far away. If you are learning now and practicing now how to live comfortably, how to live under your means, how to not necessarily live frugally, but live intentionally. Okay. I'm going to say a person makes 80K. Is that a lot for some of you? Sure. Did I make 80K? No, not the first 4 or 5 years, probably out of college. Right. But I was always, I've always made a teacher's salary, right? But I've always found other ways to bring in additional profit. So let's say you found a way, and some of you might make more than this. Some of you might think this is a lot. Let's say you found a way to make 80K. Maybe you were a teacher, you made 50,000, and you found a side hustle that could bring you 25, 30,000 a year. Okay. So you have an option. You could spend 70 to 90 of it every other year. A decade later, you have some debt, or you're just neutral. That's how most people live, right? And as your family expenses increase, you got to make more than 80,000. Okay. Now, what if you chose to make 80,000 and be so culturally different and live off of 25? 25 might sound like an absurd thing, but there are people that I have coached up and mentored in the last 5 years that have lived off of 18,000 a year post-tax, right? So let's say you live off that 25. You're frugal. That means some sacrifices, temporary convenience. But what that means is you have 55,000 to invest a year. now I believe you can learn how to invest at 10% or higher, and I'm happy to share with you guys how next weekend. But let's just say you found a decent investment, and at 5%, you invested $55,000 every year for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, you're going to have $781,000, all right, in assets. Okay, so whether you invested in small businesses or real estate or whatever, lots of different ways you can invest it. If you consistently got 5% and you invested that excess for a decade, you sacrificed your 20s, you sacrificed for a decade, you maybe didn't have as much fun as all your friends, you have $40,000 a year of passive income that you don't have to work for at that same 5% return. Okay. And to me, this is a generous example because I think you might find ways to make more money, or you might find ways to have a higher return. That 5%, you could, double it, right, potentially. But that to me is the difference between paying now and paying later. Because if you're used to living off $25,000 and now all of a sudden in 10 years you make $40,000 of passive income, then you got $15,000 of excess, right? And we're not even including your partner. We're not including, and yeah, maybe you have more expenses if you have a family. But I would argue for you younger ones without kids, like, you're going to live longer. So maybe hold off on having kids for a few more years because of the quality of life that you might be able to provide for them, right? And getting your place to that financial freedom sooner. I'm not saying don't have kids, right? I'm just saying maybe there's an intention to it, right? I'm going to poke a hole in the numbers. Man, 80K is so much. I only make 50K. Okay. If you're single, live off of 25, 30, and have 20 to invest. Will it take you 15 or 20 years? Sure, right? Or, hey, we spend more than that. Okay, between you and your partner, you need to have that excess, right? So, all those numbers we can change around, but become a better investor, right? And that just takes also time and experience and whatever. Okay. So here is a quick little blip of just working backwards. If you figure out, hey, I budget, I need $60,000 a year. Okay, well then my thing would be work backwards. You need to have, if you can get a 10% return on your investments, right? So you get rental properties and they make you 10% return. You need $600,000 of rental properties at 10% to give you $60,000 a year. So you need to just get $600,000 and then you're done. You can retire. You can work by choice the rest of your life. Okay. How long does it take? Depends. Depends on when you're investing. It depends on how good you get at investing, all those things. But I think it would be hard to take you longer than 20 years. I really do. If you're living a modest lifestyle. If you're out there, I can't help you. But you can live a very high quality of life. And here would be a little side note before we take a break. Let me just put it this way. Let your friend buy the boat. Just put that in your notes. Let your friend buy the boat. Let your friend buy the boat. You still get to go on the boat. So people have this, I assume, and I never have tried to create some sort of, I share very vulnerably on Instagram what my life is, right? I share less. But like the trips to Tahiti, see, I didn't pay for that, right? Like someone else paid for that. And I've legitimately lived off of, I'll never forget, PGC has always paid me like less than a teacher salary, right? I'm cool. I'm very passionate about it. It's my thing. And I'll never forget when I first started, 2010, one of my friends, a D1 coach, I'm doing a session at his college. And he said, yeah, man, you're going to get raises and no matter what you think, you're just going to end up, your lifestyle is going to go up to those raises. And I was thinking like, what? That is so stupid. And I just decided on that walk that day, I was like, all right, I made $30,000, right? That was my first salary. Okay. And I was like, no matter how much I make, I'm going to live off $30,000. And I did. Right. And so that's why you see now I've worked by choice for the last 2 years and I never have to work again if I don't want. I'm doing all the things I'm doing because I'm passionate about them. And there's so much depth and reward and fulfillment in that. But it took a lot of sacrifice in my 20s. Right. So we're going to take a little break. And we're going to jump into habits because habits is a really important part of discipline.
No, it's wide, not high, but even if you're wide, you still want to be successful in the wideness. So if you invest time to get like good or successful at something, and then you pivot, I feel like it's not a horizontal pivot. It's a diagonal pivot.
And that, my friend, is a whole form of economics called behavioral economics. That is something your brain is causing you to believe. Because what we do is when we've invested in something, we think it's a sunk cost. Okay. And so where I would challenge Connor and all of you, read up about it, right? It's interesting. Behavioral economics is fascinating. But where I would start to change your mindset on that, right? Sunken cost fallacy. Thank you, Kendrick. You can Google sunken cost fallacy. Kendrick put it in the chat box. Where I would change your mindset to that is like, Connor and everyone, it's part of the human experience. So Connor, personally, I think I'm the best PGC director on the planet. Tyler might want to argue, Lily might want to argue. I think I'm the best. And I've devoted a decade to becoming the best PGC director ever. And to me, it was a beautiful thing in the journey, right? The process of who I became was the real value, not, oh, now I'm the best and I have to go become a novice. And maybe that's another thing. I'm not afraid of being a novice, right? But I've changed that behavioral economics. I don't believe in that fallacy, all right? It's all a beautiful part of the human experience.
I have a question.
Sure.
Well, I don't know if it's a question or, so when we wrote down the question, what is worth doing even if I fail? I circled the word fail because that word didn't really sit well with me. I didn't know who's defining that and like what does failure actually mean and who is it relevant to? Is it relevant to you or everybody else?
Yep, great poke. I love it. For me, I believe in that, like, there is, really no such thing as failure. Everything is learning. I meant it as more what society would define as success.
Yeah, I figured that. I just didn't know if like when we're asking ourselves that question.
Yeah.
What should we?
Yeah, I would also say, like, if it wasn't society's idea of success, would I still do it? And even I struggle to come up with an example of that for slices, right? Because like as I was thinking about it, I was like, well, one person would still be success for me.
Right.
Like, if no one wanted it, I'd be like, well, it'd still be worth it. But yeah, actually, the putting it together would be worth it. So I think what is worth it even if you fail according to society?
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.